Sri Krishna, Sri Krishna. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. कृतार्थम प्रति नष्टम अपि अनष्टम तद अन्य साधारणत्वात्. This drishya, which is included starting from the Vishesha Parinam to Alinga Parinam, the total drishya starting from Prakriti up to the Ekadashendriyani and the five Bhutamatras, Panchabhutanis. All of them are called as Drishya, and the one Purusha who has separated himself from the Drishya has become Kritartha. And for him, this objective world has no existence. So, Kritartham prati nashtam, api anashtam tad anya sadharanatvad. But for the other jivas or the seeker who are not yet Kritartha, for them it continues to exist. This is how the 22nd Sutra told us. Now, Sanyoga Swarupa Avidhitsaya Idam Sutram Pravavrate. Now to tell the nature of union between the Swami Shakti. Swa is the Prakriti, Swami is the Purusha. So Swa Shakti and Swami Shakti, Prakriti and the Purusha, Swarupa Upalabdhi Hetu Sanyogaha. So, what is the purpose that these two come together? And this is a very, very beautiful thought. What is the reason that Purusha and Prakriti come together? So we have seen Bhogapavargartham. There are many of them. One is last Bhogapavargartham. For the Bhoga of the Purusha, for the Purusha to experience the whole world, the Prakriti or the Vritti is necessary. So, the Vritti is necessary for getting the experience of this world. That is Bhoga. And Apavarga. And when the Purusha is able to understand through Viveka Khyati, through proper discrimination, that is Purusha in association with the Vritti, wherein the Purusha becomes reflected and then the experiencer is born. Therefore, essentially Purusha is asanga, untouched. When this understanding in the Purusha comes, it is called as moksha or the apavarga. This is the purpose for which the Purusha Prakriti Sanyoga takes place. It is something like this. If somebody comes and tells me, Swamiji, yes, talak, 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 divorce, divorce, divorce. So I will ask, my dear mother, when did we get married that you can seek divorce from me? So unless the Purusha is involved in the bhoga, in the relativity, in the duality, he will have no meaning for the moksha. And therefore, this Purusha Prakriti Sanyoga is Swaswarupa Upalabdhi Hetu. This becomes the Hetu, the cause, so that one is able to recognize one's essential self, as well as one is able to know what the Prakriti or the Pradhana is. So Purusha Swami, the one who is the Swami or the boss of this Prakriti or the Drishya, Drishyena Svena Sanyuktaha becomes one with the drishya. Now again I repeat this thing because this is very important. How the Purusha becomes united with the vritti or the thought? It is something like, water and oil cannot mix because they belong to different categories. One example. Second example. The wealth of the dream cannot make us rich in the waking world. Or the hunger of the waking world cannot be satiated by the food from the dream world, because they belong to two different degrees of realities, not the same. In the same manner, Purusha and Prakriti, they are totally of different nature. Then how can they unite together? How their sanyoga takes place? And this is what is the basis of the Jiva Bhava. So what happens? This Purusha becomes identified one word or one expression, or gets reflected another expression, or becomes conditioned third expression, or manifests through fourth expression. All these four expressions mean the same thing. For example, when the child is ill, the mother feels the illness. So the temperature is to the child. Why should the mother feel? Unless you become mother, you will not understand. See? So, what has happened exactly is getting identified with the misery of the child, or getting reflected. Getting reflected means what? Like, the pure consciousness is pure knowledge and infinite. Now that pure infinite knowledge, the consciousness that is, when it gets manifested through the conditioning of the I, then it is limited only in the field of colors and forms. So this is what? This is the conditioned expression of the infinite knowledge. These are different expressions, it means the same. So this Purusha Prakriti Sanyoga is of this type. Another example in the Pratibimbavad is given that when the sun enters the water in the bucket, then there is a reflection, and that reflected disk of sun is throwing a beam of light in a corner of a room where the darkness is removed. Now when it is said the sun enters the waters and from there he throws the light beam for the corner of the room, that doesn't mean that the sun has entered, but it has entered. So what is that now? It is entry without entrance. See? In the same manner, this Purusha and the Prakriti Sanyoga is for establishing what is the essential nature of the Prakriti or the Buddhi, and what is the essential nature of the Purusha. For coming to this final conclusion, this Prakriti Purusha Sanyoga takes place. So, Purushaha Drushyena Svena Sanyuktaha Tasmat Sanyogad Ya Drishyasya Upalabdhi Sabhogaha. So, Purusha, who is the Swami of the Prakriti, Drushyena Svena Sanyuktaha. Svena Drushyena, that means his own vritti, thought, not everybody else's. So Purusha with the conditioning of his own thought, chitta vritti, Sanyuktaha, then Drishyasya Upalabdhihi. Then the objects are recognized, gained. See, all the gains are always through knowledge. It is something like, suppose you have a ticket of a lottery in your pocket and the number has come, but you don't know. So, you are no more rich. So, every gain is through knowledge. Therefore, we experience the world only through Jnanendriyas, not through Karmendriyas. Karmendriyas don't give us experience of the world. It is only through the knowledge, because jnana is upalabdhi dvara. It is only through the knowledge that the experience of gain or loss comes. So, how the Purusha is gaining the knowledge of this world? When the Purusha is conditioned by the buddhi vritti, svena sanyuktaha, tasmat sanyogat, because of the union with the buddhi vritti, drusyasya upalabdhi, then only the object is recognized. Then sabhogaha, this is called as the bhoga. This is one example. Now, second, yatu drashtuhu swarupa upalabdhihi sa apavargaha. The second step, when the drashtuhu, the seeker, the Chaitanya, the Purusha, recognizes his own essential self. Be very attentive. When will he recognize his own essential self? When he is not preoccupied with the vrittis. Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. When there are no vrittis to reflect, there will be no objective knowledge. When there is no objective knowledge, there will be objectless awareness. J. Krishnamurti. This objectless awareness is called as the moksha or the apavarga. Apavarga is freedom from relative existence. So, yatu drashtuhu swarupopalabdhi sa apavargaha. And therefore, this Purusha Khyati is recognition of the Purusha as independent of the buddhi vritti, and therefore not getting identified with the buddhi vritti, and therefore there is no perception of the sense of otherness, and therefore the Purusha has come back to his essential self, and this itself is called as moksha or liberation or apavarga or Purusha Khyati. Now, for this purpose, this Purusha Prakriti Sanyog takes place. There is no other purpose. So, Darshana Karyavasanaha Sanyogaha Darshanam Viyogasya Karanam Hetu Uktam. So, Darshana Karya Avasanaha. When this Sanyogaha, this union or coming together of the Purusha and the Buddhi Vritti, when Darshana Karya Avasanaha, the purpose is fulfilled. What is the purpose? Bhoga and Apavarga. So the Sanyoga, the togetherness of the Purusha and the Buddhi Vritti is only till such time that either you are in the Bhoga or you are in the Moksha. So when the Bhoga or the Moksha takes place, both the things they have taken place, then that is called as Darshanam, and Viyogasya Karanam Uktam. And once this happens, then Purusha is very comfortably getting away from the Chitta Vritti. See? Therefore, what is the meaning of liberation? What is the meaning of freedom? Is this. When Purusha is no more influenced by the proximity of the Chitta Vritti. That is the cause. Now, this darshanam, this bodha, this understanding about bhoga and apavarga, about the experience of duality and the recognition of the non-dual self. This darshanam, both ways, darshanam adarshanasya avidyayaha pratidandi, is contrary, opposed to the avidya. We have seen what is avidya. Avidya is not absence. Avidya is incomplete knowledge. A stands for apurnata. So, how the apurnata? Because when the Purusha is functioning through only his own chitta vrittis, he cannot know the total. And in that, in limited knowledge, when it is taken to be the ultimate knowledge, the Jiva Bhava begins. So, this Darshanam Adarsanasya Pratidvandvi Ataha Adarshanam Sanyogasya Nimittam Uktam. And therefore, Sanyogasya Nimittam Adarshanam. Therefore, what is the cause of this Purusha Prakriti coming together? Is avidya, Adarshana. And this is how it is said. Now, one problem is discussed. When you say that after the destruction of the avidya, then the moksha takes place, that means it is a created condition. You know how this sentence is. After the removal of the darkness, the light enters the room. Or when you switch on the bulb in a dark room, so what happens? The darkness is removed, then the light comes. So removal of the darkness is the cause and arrival of the light is effect. Is this the way? This is the question raised. That when it is said, avidya is the cause of this sanyoga, Purusha Prakriti coming together, and when this avidya is removed by Purusha Khyati, then the moksha takes place. Therefore, moksha or the liberation is the effect, and therefore it is created in time. So if it is created in time, it will be destroyed. See how much these people didn't have any other thing to do. Isn't it? That is why, unless one is totally free from the worldly preoccupations, your mind cannot go deeper and deeper. One day, in I think 7th or 6th chapter of Panchadashi, I was teaching somewhere. And after that, there also the logic and the doubts are so terse and so difficult. First of all, you don't understand what the doubt is. Forget about understanding the answer. And when I was explaining, everything was over, one person came and he said, Swamiji, I have been studying this particular, Panchadashi for years together. Hardly any doubt which this Mahatma has raised has ever come to my mind. So earlier I was doubt free. After I studied Panchadashi, now the doubts are coming in my mind. I said, look here Maharaj, it is not like that. The doubts in your mind, they are covered under the disguise of the ignorance. Hiranmayena patrena satyasyapi hitam mukham. It is only the vivekinaha sarvam dukkhamayam jagat, not for the aviveki. So here also this question is raised. This bondage is removed and then the moksha takes place, and therefore moksha is the effect. So he has to prove no, moksha is not the effect. Because atra darshanam moksha karanam na the adarshana abhavat eva. Because this recognition of the self is the moksha karanam, and the moment the adarshanam, avidya, the sanyoga is removed, that itself is moksha. In the language of Vedanta, what is said is avarana bhanga. When these three gunas, avarana, is covering the self, when this avarana, the covering, the curtain is removed, removal of the curtain is the manifestation of the reality. They may be called as two sentences and two things, but they are one and the same. They are not two things. So when we say the darkness is removed, itself means the light is there. So because we are using the language, when you switch on the light, first the darkness goes and then the light comes, these are not two events. These are the two sides of the same thing. In the same manner, when this Darshanam is removed, avidya is removed, the Sanyoga goes away and liberation takes place. So that doesn't mean liberation is the effect. It is already there. Therefore, Darshana adarshana abhavat bandha abhavaha sa mokshaha. When there is no adarshana, avidya, ignorance about the self, there will be no bondage, bandha abhavaha, and sa eva mokshaha. And therefore, darshanasya bhave. And when these two types of darshan, understanding takes place, bhoga and apavarga, what it is. See? If this knowledge becomes clear, now we are struggling, you want to understand what is said. But when this knowledge becomes your own, it is something like this. When you know and you are fully established in this knowledge, like we are established in the knowledge that we are the body. Therefore, all our life is conducted on this foundation that I am the body. In the same manner, when we come to know that everything in this world is recognized by us through the agency of thought. Be very, very attentive. When we come to this firm conviction that everything by us is recognized through the agency of thoughts, and if the thoughts are disturbed, our perception cannot be right. If the thoughts are dull, the perception cannot be correct. See? And therefore, whatever knowledge we get about this world is definitely clouded, colored, influenced by the condition of our mind. And therefore, that mind which is not under our control, with that mind, through that goggle, when we look at the world, we are not seeing the world as it is, but we are seeing the world colored by the condition of our mind. If this is clearly recognized and established in our heart, what will happen? We will never misunderstand anybody. See? We will never misunderstand. Why misunderstanding comes? Because we become the victim of our own mind's quality. So sometime our behavior is extremely goody-goody. Next time we become cold. The third time as if nothing has happened. This abnormal conditioning of the mind is influencing the person so much, and he is not aware that he is becoming the victim of the condition of the mind. Therefore, when this darshanam takes place, this understanding takes place, then all our experience in this world are based only on the quality of the thoughts. And therefore, what we see is not the world. What we see is the reflection of the world in the thought. How important it is. Now this you can understand through a simple example which I gave you the other day. Whatever colors and forms we see through our eyes, so they go in our eyes through the lens and form an image upside down, and that image is cognized by the mind, and then that image is illumined by the light of consciousness. Therefore, what we see is only images. If we are experiencing only the images, so all our life is only imaginary. Is it not true? This is one image, that I am the man. And thereafter, on the basis of this image, I build another images. That I am brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, I am Hindu, Musliman, I am educated, uneducated, I am Indian, I am non-Indian. All these images are based on the foundation image that I am the body. See how important it is. Therefore, this knowledge about the bhoga is not for getting involved and indulgent in the world, but to come to recognize that Purusha is able to get the worldly objective knowledge only through the vritti. And if there is no vritti, there cannot be objectivity. When there is no objectivity, there cannot be desire. When there is no desire, there cannot be disturbance. When there is no disturbance, there cannot be action. There is no karma. When there is no karma, where is the question of jati, ayur, bhogaha and karma, shaya and all punya, hetutva? Nothing of the sort. If this knowledge takes place by this study, then alone our study is becoming meaningful. This is what here is very clearly said. Therefore, atra darshanam moksha karanam. This correct understanding itself becomes the cause of the liberation. Because adarshana abhavat bandha abhavaha saha mokshaha. So, darshanasya bhave, when these two types of understanding, what is the meaning of bhoga and what is the meaning of moksha, when these two things are clear in our understanding, darshanasya bhave, bandha karanasya adarshanasya nashaha nivrittihi. So what is the bandha karanam? Ajnana or adarshan, or the ignorance. And when the ignorance is deleted, this itself is called as the adarshanasya nashaha ataha darshana jnanam kaivalya mukti karanam iti uktam. And that is why it is said, proper understanding of both the experiences. Now be very attentive. Experience through the agency of thought is one quality, and experience without the agency of thought is another quality. Now see, experience through the agency of thought will establish duality. Drashta, drishya, bhed. It will establish. And the Purusha Matra, only Prakriti cannot have knowledge because it is Jada. But Purusha Matra, who is Shuddha Chaitanya Swarupa, he will have the knowledge. But his knowledge will be not the knowledge in an objective fashion, but it will be the knowledge of being, where being and knowing is one. There, the agency of thought is not involved. All the struggle that we have on the seat of meditation is this struggle. We are unable to drop the process of thoughts even on the seat of meditation. The moment this is clearly understood. And we don't have to believe, imagine. This is our every moment's experience. The moment you come back to yourself, only being. So for being, you don't require any thought. I am is the thought. See? Because I is creating a kind of individuality, a subject. This is the objectless awareness. It is not said objectless subject, no. When there is no object, a subject has no existence. When there is no wife, husband cannot live. He has to depart. So this objectless awareness is one part of knowledge which is called as moksha or the liberation. And second is knowledge gained through the agency of thought is called as the bhoga. When these two things become clear, then bandha karanasya adarnasya nashaha, so darshana jnanam kaivalya karanam iti uktam. Therefore, this correct understanding about bhoga and apavarga is the cause of liberation. Make this point very, very clear. Now here, 8 options are discussed. And these 8 options are so enchanting. What intent is? See, adarshana bhavad eva bandha bhavaha samokshayati. Now, darshanasya bhave bandha karanasya adarshana iti darshanani kavalyam uchyate. Now, kincha idam adarshanam nama. Now, here onward, the questions are raised. What is this adarshanam? Or what is this ajnana, avidya, ignorance? I was hesitating to use the word ignorance. So let us keep the word ajnana or the avidya. You may note it for your understanding, but it is incomplete knowledge, not the absence of knowledge. Avidya is not absence of knowledge. Ignorance means absence of knowledge. That's why, these technical terms are totally different than the translated terms. That is why when we study any scriptures only on the basis of the translations, you can never get the full import. The other day, somewhere, somebody asked me, Swamiji, what is the difference between, because when you talk, you refer to the Sanskrit terms and we do not know Sanskrit. So, is it necessary? I said, no, it is not necessary, go ahead. Then why do you use? I said, because I know Sanskrit. Then what is the difference it makes? I said, this is the difference it makes. Technical terms, unless they are used with the correct definition, your understanding will remain incomplete. So, what is the meaning of ignorance or ajnana or the avidya? 8 options are taken for discussions, not one. Now what are those? First, kim gunanam adhikaraha adarshanam. What is the gunanam adhikaraha? Karya arambhana samarthyam. So, the 3 gunas, trigunatmika prakriti, in original state it is what called as alinga parinam. And this trigunatmika prakriti, this alinga parinam, starts modification. The first modification is the mahat tattva or the buddhi. That is called as the linga parinam. Now from this linga parinam, there is avishesha parinam, 6 types, 1 asmita and 5 tanmatras. And then from the asmita, there is a vishesha parinam. And what is that vishesha parinam? It is the 11 jnanendriyas. And from the pancha tanmatras, what is that? The pancha mahabhutas. Now is this called as the ignorance? First question. Kim gunanam adhikaraha. See, this word, we use in our local languages, therefore the comprehension becomes difficult. Kru is the dhatu. From the kru becomes the kar. Adhi is around. So, is this that the modification of the prakriti up to the last, this is called as the ignorance or the avidya? This one. So this ability, because of which the prakriti modifies, is this the avidya? One. Second thing, ahosvid or drushi rupasya swaminaha pradhana chittasya anutpadaha pradhana chittanupadaha swasmin drushye vidyamane darshanasya anutpattihi. Now second thing is said, drushi sarupasya swaminaha, the Swami, the Purusha, who is of the nature of the seer only or the knower, shabdadi sattva purusha anyata khyati rupam pradhana chittasya vivekasya iti ashayah anutpadaha. Is this ignorance? Now understand this also. This Purusha, he is in association with the vritti or the prakriti. And because of that, vivekasya anutpadaha, that there is no possibility or ability because of which Purusha and the Prakriti are not separated, but they continue to exist in togetherness. Is this ignorance? Second option. So, vivekasya anutpadaha eva adarshanam ityartaha. The failure to discriminate between the Purusha and the Vritti or the thought or the Prakriti is ignorance according to the second option. Now the third. Kim gunanam arthavattaha, is this called as adarshan? Satkarya siddhehe siddher bhavi bhoga apavargayoho avypadeshaha swakarneshu guneshu avasthanam ityartaha. So, kim gunanam arthavatta artha purushartaha tadyukta arthavantaha tesham bhavaha striyam purushartha yuktata adarshan. So, the is the avidya means what? The bhoga apavarga together is experienced through the Purusha and the Prakriti in their togetherness. Is this called as the avidya? Because what for the Purusha Prakriti comes together? Bhoga apavargartham. So is it Purushartha arthavatta? Is it because of this it is called as ignorance, or is this ignorance that Purusha Prakriti come together so that they can have bhog as well as the moksha? This is the third option. Now fourth one. So, satkarya siddhehe bhavi bhoga apavarga yoho avyapadeshaha. Satkarya siddhe. When the purpose is established, bhavi bhoga apavarga yoho avyapadeshaha. The future togetherness or superimposition of the Prakriti on the Purusha is not possible, and therefore swakaraneshu guneshu avasthanam ityartaha, and therefore they go back to their original status. So when this is not happening, is this called as the avidya? Third option. Again I am explaining. Don't feel, I don't know, it's going above head. I don't know, it's going above head. Satkarya siddhe. The Satkarya siddha, the purpose is attained. What is the purpose? Bhoga apavarga. Experience and apavarga moksha. So, Satkarya siddhe, bhavi in the future, bhoga apavarga yoho avyapadeshoho. There is no possibility of superimposition of the bhoga and apavarga, because now they are separated. And as a result of their separation, they have gone back. Prakriti goes to the Prakriti and Purusha remains with Purusha. When this does not happen, is this ignorance or avidya? Fourth. Atha swachitena saha niruddha swachittasya utpatti bijam avidya. Now this is the definition accepted in the Sankhya Shastra. See, swachittena saha niruddha. At the time of the pralaya kal, the seeds of the otherness which are contained in the chitta. So, sachittena saha niruddha swachittasya utpatti bijam. What is that? Because of which the consciousness chit becomes chitta? Utpatti bijam. Utpatti bijam is takara. Takara is the thought, a vritti, a sense of otherness. So, this chittena saha niruddha swachittasya utpatti bijam avidya. Is this the avidya? This is the fourth option. So, sa cha avidya vasana eva darshanam iti ayameva pakshaha siddhanto bhavishyati. Now, this is the paksha which is accepted in our Yoga Shastra. Means what happens, this word vasana has to be clearly understood. See, it is something like this. When, let us take a child or not a child, let's take anybody who is born, even the animal, a baby pig is born. Now, there is nobody who is required to teach those piglets that go find out the teats, the udder of the mother and start sucking milk. Nobody teaches. Where from this comes? This is called as the vasana. This is the bij. Because this is the one thing one has been doing, eating by mouth for many millions of lives. Therefore, no education is required as regards eating is concerned. And equally it is true with reference to procreation. But the so-called modern foolish approach, the sex education right from the childhood, has destroyed the whole society. It is not required. Animals are not taught. When a right time comes in the life of a person, it happens. It is not to be taught. These are called as the vasana samskar. So that knowledge which comes in the form of the seed in the chitta, is that the avidya? This is the fourth option. And pralaya kale, at the time of dissolution, it goes back and again becomes the seed, because of which again out of the consciousness, again or out of the prakriti, the chitta is born. Now the fifth. Kim sthiti samskara kshaye gati samskarasya abhivyaktihi. So, samya parinama parampara vahinaha pradhanavartinaha kshaye. See, in the avyakta sthiti, alinga parinam, when the three gunas are in their samyavastha, in equanimity, unmanifest. This is the first step. Now, samya parinama parampara vahinaha pradhanavartina kshaye. When the prakriti is kshaya, is no more allowed to remain in the perfect balance of the three gunas, and as a result of which there is a disbalance in the three gunas. And because of the disbalance in the three gunas, prakriti starts expressing as the Mahat Tattva. And because of this, Mahat Tattva expresses as Ahankar or the Asmita. And because of this, the Asmita expresses as the Ekadashendriyani. And because of this Mahat Tattva expresses as Panchatanmatras. And because of these, Panchatanmatras expressed as the Panchamahabhutas. Is this called as the avidya or the ignorance? Fifth option. How much deep thinking has gone. Therefore, Patanjali Yoga Darshan is one which gives us an exhaustive understanding about the mind. And all other psychology, big scientists, Freud and all that, they only talk about the unhealthy mind. Therefore, a psychiatrist ultimately turns into a patient. There were two psychiatrists. One became mad towards his career, became crazy and all that. Other was cheerful and happy. So, this disgusted fellow, he said, "Hey, we are practicing, but you are the same one, what we started in the beginning. But I am feeling so disgusted and frustrated. What is the difference? When all these patients come and go on telling about, Doesn't it affect you when you listen to them? So the other doctor says, psychiatrist says, who listens? If you listen, then only you are affected, like Vedanta. Who listens? And that is why whatever we are before the study, the same we continue to be after the study. Who listens? So, this sthiti samskara kshaye gati samskarasya abhivyakti. Sthiti samskara remaining in equanimity. Kshaye when this stops. Then gati samskara then starts mahat tattva asmita etc. 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 Abhivyakti. Yatra sthitya eva vartamanam vikarasya akaranat apradhanam. And because of in the vartamanam, in the normal condition, in the absence of the modification, apradhanam, it is called as the pradhiyate prakarshena dhiyate vikarajatam tena. Therefore, pradhamna na tatha iti apradhanam. Therefore, he is not allowing the modification to happen. Is this what is called as the avidya or the ignorance? This is the fifth question raised. So, tatha cha pradhanam che sthiti matrena varteta tada vikara ajanakatvad apradhanam na syan mula karanatvam hi pradhanatvam iti. So, is this what is called as the avidya, that because of which the pradhana becomes manifest? Is this? Tatha gattaiva vartamanam vikara nityatvad apradhanam ubhayatha asya pravrittihi pradhana vivaharam lavate nanyatha. And when this pradhana or the avikari, the avyakta, is initiated into changes or the vivahara, then only it is called as changing, na anyatha. So this is because of some other cause, and that kalpiteshu esha samanaha charchaha. And on this a lot of discussions have taken place. Therefore, charchaha, church is a Sanskrit word. It is not an English word. Church is the dhatu. And from that ghaya pratyaya it becomes charchaha. Now this is the fifth one. Now sixth objection, or rather possibility. Darshana shakti eva. Meaning what? Purushaya atmanam darshayitum ya kshamata sa darshan shakti adarshanam iti. Eke manyate iti sheshaha. So some people think that darshana shakti, the ability to know itself, is ignorance. This approach you will see in the Kashmiri Shaivaism. There is one sutra in the Shaiva Sutra. One sutra comes, Jnano bandhaha, knowledge is bondage. Now what is the Darshana Shakti? Darshan Shakti is that knowledge because of which a sense of objectivity is created. That is called as Darshana Shakti. When there is no difference between the knower and the known, where is the question of darshan? You can't even call it as darshana. Therefore, this Darshana Shakti is called as ignorance according to some people. So, they explain pradhanasya pravrittihi atmanaha khyapanartham and sarva bodhya bodha samarthaha purushaha pravrittihi prak na pashyati. Therefore, sarva karya karana samartham drishyam tada na drishyate. So this Purusha, before the manifestation of his ability to get into the objective phenomena of knower and known, he is no more seer. And because of this avidya, this process of seeing otherness begins. Is this called as the avidya? Now the seventh one. Adarsham ubhayasyapi dharmaha. The seventh people say that avidya belongs to both of them, Prakriti as well as the Purusha. So how it is drishyasya prakrutehe, it is said. Tatra drishyasya svatma bhutam api Purusha pratyaya apeksham darshanam. Purusha pratyaya apeksham darshanam. Idam adarshanam. Now the Prakriti itself is the object of knowledge. And yet it can be known only because of the grace of the Purusha. Isn't it? This paperweight will not know paperweight. The paperweight is known only because of the Purusha. This is called as ignorance. Therefore, it is ubhaya pakshe, both. It exists also in the Prakriti as well as in the Purusha. So, drishyasya svatma bhutam api Purusha pratyaya apeksham darshanam iti adarshanam. Drishya dharmatvena bhavati. So, this is the avidya, ignorance, or adarshan with reference to the drishya padartha. Now, tatha purushasya anatma bhutam api drishya pratyayapeksham adarshanam. And for the Purusha, how this ignorance is related? Anatma bhutam api. Although this Prakriti is not the Purusha, and yet because of the proximity with the Prakriti, the Purusha becomes identified with the Prakriti and starts thinking that he is a body, he is a thought, he is happy, he is miserable. And therefore, this is the avidya, ignorance with reference to the Purusha. And therefore, avidya exists both the places, Purusha as well as Prakriti. Isn't this beautiful? So, Purushasya anatma bhutam api Purushasya dnyarupatvad drishya pratyayapeksham adarshanam bauddha jnanam. So, Purusha dharmatvena iva avabhasate. And in this manner, etaduktam bhavati chaitanya bimbod grahitaya buddhi chaitanya yoho abhedat buddhi dharmascha chaitanya dharma eva chakasati iti. Therefore, the buddhi dharma and the chaitanya dharma, they are totally separate. But what happens because of their togetherness, only they are established. And togetherness is because of ignorance. And therefore, this ignorance or avidya exists in both of them. Now the eighth vikalpa, the eighth option, what this ignorance or avidya is. Now, darshana jnanam eva adarshanam. Perception of the objective knowledge is called as ignorance. Darshanam jnanam eva adarshanam. Iti kechit abhidadati. This is how some people say. So kechit vadanti viveka vitiriktam yad darshanam darshana jnanam shabdadi rupam tadeva adarshanam. So that knowledge which is objective and which takes us away from our essential self is called as the ignorance or avidya. Now ete shastragataha vikalpaha etad vikalpa bahutvam sarva purushanam gunanam sanyoge sadharana vishayam astiti. Now here one very beautiful thought is brought. What is said? All this vikalpa bahutvam, so many options which we have spoken about, they are for what? Vikalpa etad vikalpa bahutvam sarva purushanam gunanam sanyoge sadharana vishayam. This will be called as the samashti avidya. It is the common factor. Therefore, sarva purushanam gunanam sanyoge. For all the purushas, because we have seen according to Shastra, this Yoga Shastra, many purushas. So all the purushas will have this common problem. It is not some specific problem. And therefore it is called as the samashti avidya. Samashti avidya is called in Vedanta Shastra as Maya. And the Vyashti avidya is called as avidya. And both are vidya. Or both you can call as avidya, doesn't make any difference. Because avidya is not abhavatmak, it is incomplete knowledge. And now, after having understood this, the teacher goes further. And therefore, etancha pratisvikam apurusha vailakshanya Anugunnena turyasya eva. Therefore the fourth, turya means the fourth option which we have spoken of in this. Now what is the fourth option? Go back. Swachittena saha niruddha utpatti bijam avidya. Therefore for the individual Purusha, for the individual Jiva, what is the avidya? When our chitta is carrying the seed of vasana, and those seeds of vasana, because of which after every pralaya is over, utpatti takes place. That time these vasanas again create chitta, and therefore this vasana bijam is called as the avidya at the individual level. See how beautiful it is. Therefore, samashti avidya and vyashti avidya. And what we are doing here in Yoga Shastra is looking after the vyashti avidya. Samashti avidya, we have no business to do anything. Isn't it? Because Panchakosha Upadhi Chaitanya Jiva and Mayopadhi Chaitanya Ishvara. And when you remove both the conditionings, the Shuddha Chaitanya remains. Now the question comes. You can remove your Panchakosha Upadhi. How can you remove somebody else's Upadhi? You cannot remove the Mayopadhi. Then what is to be done? So from the Ishvara's point of view, it is only the path of devotion. See? Daivi hesha gunamai mama maya duratyaya mamevaye prapadyanti maya metam tarantite. Therefore, Vedanta Shastra gives us a complete picture. Yoga Shastra gives us how to work on ourselves, so that we go beyond the Panchakoshas. And Bhakti Shastra tells us how to remove this ego, I. When all these things come together, then only our spiritual practice is going in the right direction, not otherwise. Sri Krishna, in this manner, we have seen this avidya, which is the cause of Prakriti Purusha Sanyoga. And this Prakriti Purusha Sanyoga is the cause of this samsara. And the samsara is dukkham and heyam. And therefore, we have studied all this. After we have seen the Prakriti and Ajnana and their Sanyoga, etc., now the next topic taken is Yaha tu pratyak chetanasya swabuddhi sanyogaha. Now, this pratyak chetana, the individual Purusha, when he comes in contact with his own buddhi, own chitta, tasya hetuhu avidya. So, the cause of this individual Chaitanya Purusha coming in contact with his individual chitta is because of avidya. This is said in the 24th Sutra, Tasya hetuhu avidya. Therefore, we have seen these 8 options about avidya, and the 4th we have taken. And what was the 4th? It was that vasana yukta chitta, and the vasana become the bija for the next chitta's birth. And this is called as avidya at the level of the individual jiva or the purusha. So tasya hetuhu avidya. And now about this avidya also, very good. Now what we are talking is about the individual avidya. Now, viparyaya jnana vasana vasita buddhi avidya. Viparyaya jnana is what? Mithya jnanam. Mithya jnanam is what? That which is not is recognized to be that. Atasmin tad buddhi. These are the terms of the Vedanta Shastra. Atasmin tad buddhi means atasmin, that which is not. Tad buddhi, to think it is that. These terms are so beautiful. They carry the whole material in one small phrase. Like, the standard example. We see the snake, a rope as a snake, under the influence of the delusion. Now what is this experience? This experience is atasmin, tad buddhi. Snake is not. Atasmin. Tad buddhi, the snake is. This is called as superimposition or delusion. So here also, viparya jnana vasana vasita buddhi. Now the question comes, where from this funny thing has come? Practice. From many, many lives, this vasana vasita buddhi. That is why, it is extremely necessary that we have to go beyond our swabhava. All the spiritual practice is reaching the swarupa by conquering the swabhava. Swabhava is vasana vasita buddhi, viparya jnanam. So what are our vasanas, our old habits, our likes and dislikes, our instincts? Like, many people have this funny notion. When I was in the US, somebody was discussing with me from some church that, you people are abstaining from the sex or the married life and leading an abnormal life. And this is not right. And then he has quoted some of the Western psychologists. I said, look here, Western psychologists have written for the animals. Our scriptures are written for the human beings. When I said like that white man started becoming blue. And thereafter he did not say one word. I said, you people have never even imagined that higher life is ever possible. Your society, your culture tells this. See how important it is. Freedom is considered more important than discipline. Individual freedom is more important than the national security. See? Therefore, let us understand very important point. We have to conquer this vasana. It is not suppression. Suppression leaving an impact of depression or perversion is detrimental. Suppression followed by education is sublimation. And we have to sublimate these lower instincts, then only we can grow spiritually. Therefore, here avidya viparya jnana vasana vasita buddhi karya nistham purushakyatim na apnoti. So, because of our inherent tendencies, we are unable to attain the purushakhyati, separation of the purusha from the prakriti. Na apnoti. We all know that. We know this is wrong, but yet we do. What is the reason? This vasana vasita buddhi. There is no other reason. And therefore, purushakyatim na apnoti, cannot attain that. That is why it is necessary that we first purify our heart. And for purifying the heart, self-discipline is necessary. If we don't have self-discipline, then go with the teacher and get disciplined. That is why the necessity of staying with the Guru. When the student stays with the Guru, he has no choice but to be disciplined. And once the student is self-disciplined, then he doesn't require any, burden on his head. So, na apnoti. Ataha sadhikara punaha avartate. And because of this buddhi or the chitta is again and again born. Sadhikara along with the karya. So what is the karya? Jati ayurbhogaha, again it is born. Sadhikara punaha avartate. And therefore, satu purusha khyati viparya vasana tada karyanishtham prapnoti charitadhikaraha nivrutta darshanaha bandha karanasya abhavat na punaha avartate. And when the same buddhi, which is vasana vasita buddhi, when this vasana vasita buddhi is taken up to the level of purusha khyati parjavasana, when by the process of discrimination the vasana vasita buddhi is separated, purusha khyati has taken place, one has reached up to the stage of the sampradnyat samadhi, where purusha khyati vivek khyati is one and the same, where the purusha khyati viveka khyati has taken place. At that time tada karyanishtham prapnoti charitadhikara. Then the purpose of the sanyoga of the Purusha and the Prakriti is fulfilled. And what is the purpose fulfilled? Bhoga apavarga. And I told you what is the meaning of bhoga. Bhoga doesn't mean getting indulgent. Bhoga means understanding that all our experiences are through the vritti. And if the vrittis are perfectly controlled, then our bhog will have a different fragrance. And if there are no vrittis, there cannot be bhoga. This understanding is called as the purpose of the bhoga. It is not only for enjoyment. That is why, many people have this argument. See, God has created these things only for the man to eat and indulge. No. God has not created the creation for us to eat and indulge, but to grow spiritually. The world is created for indulgence only for the lower animals, which are a bhoga pradhan, which are a bhoga yoniya. They are not meant for the human beings. Human birth is not for bhoga, it is for yoga. And for attaining the yoga, we must know the science of bhoga, what it is. And when you give up something with understanding, then that giving up lasts long. When you give up something out of accident, frustration, again you will get it back. It will never remain away from it. Therefore, charitadhikara nivruttu darshana bandha karanasya abhavan na punaha avartate. And therefore, such a chitta that is purified will not again come, because it has now clearly been established in its own clarity of understanding. Now, this is called as the moksha or the apavarga. Here, he has given a very beautiful statement. Yatha agnihi swachrayam dagdva swayameva nashyati tatha darshanam adarshanam vinashya swayameva nivartate. Just like the fire, having burned the wood, it reduces the wood into nothing, and the fire also goes back to the unmanifest. In the same manner, darshanam adarshanam hitva, this right understanding purusha khyati, destroying the adarshanam, that the purusha prakriti sanyoga, having destroyed that, then this darshanam, wisdom or the knowledge or understanding, that also disappears. And what remains thereafter is purusha prakriti separate. In the language of Vedanta, this is called as the akhanda brahmakara vritti, dehakara vritti denies, and there this akhanda brahmakara vritti also disappears. See? Jnana jnane parityaja jnanameva avashishyate. In our Sadachar, probably we have studied. Ythagni swakshrayam dagdva swayam eva nashyati tada darshanam adarshanam vinashya swayam eva nivartate. And in this manner, this buddhi becomes krutakritya, because now both bhog and apavarga is completed. About this, some argumentative person gives an example that what you are telling is nonsense. How? He says, Kaschit Shandopakyanam Uddhatayati Mugdhaya Bharaya Shandakaha Vidiyate Aryaputra Me Bhagini Apatyavati Kimartham Nahamiti Tam Aha Mrutoham Te Apatyam Utpadayishyamiti. There was one innocent wife. She spoke to her impotent husband and said, Dear husband, my sister has become mother. Why don't I become mother? So that impotent husband said, when I die, then you will become mother. Now in the same manner here says, Idam vidyamanam jnanam chitta nivrittim na karoti. See? That Purusha Khyati, the knowledge, that does not remove the Chitta Vritti. And Vinashtam Jnanam Karoti. How it is possible? Therefore he gives that funny example. But he doesn't understand that it is Buddhi Nivritti eva adarshana karana abhavad Buddhi Nivrittihi and Tacha adarshanam bandha karanam. So when the buddhi nivritti takes place, adarshana goes, bandha karanam goes, and that itself is called as the moksha. This you don't understand and start quoting wrong examples. Here, if you read the Sanskrit, this is very sarcastic language they are used. And therefore, asthane eva katham mati vibhramaha. Now how come you get such stupid and funny doubts in your mind? So, etaduktam bhavati jnanam na sakshad moksha hetu asmabhihi ishyate kintu avidya kya darshana nivritti tatkarya nirodha yoga dvara tatha cha vinashtam api jnanam buddhi purusha viyoga rupa moksha vyapara dvara karanam sambhavati iti. Therefore, what we have said is that the jnanam is meant only for the removal of the ignorance. And the removal of the ignorance itself is called as the liberation. We have never said that the jnanam creates the moksha. We have never said that. In this manner, here, these topics are very beautifully dealt with. After this, heyam dukkham heya karanam cha sanyogakyam sanimittam uktam ataha paramhanam vaktavyam. So we have discussed dukkham heyam heya karanam sanyogakyam sanimittam. We have discussed all this now. The last one, next one is hanam. That is to be discussed. So what is that? How is that? We will take in our next class. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnaat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Harihi Om.